Paul Peter was a brilliant and idealistic young scientist working on the most ambitious project of his life at GenX. The development of ultra-resistant biological filaments capable of revolutionizing engineering and medicine. The declared goal was to create sustainable and regenerative structures, but there were rumors that the true purpose of the project involved secret military applications. Paul ignored the hallway chatter and focused on his research. He believed his science could transform the world for the better. However, one fateful night changed everything. During a high-risk experiment, Paul and his team were testing a new combination of synthesized biological elements. The compound, called X, involved genetically modified arachnid genes and highly unstable chemical substances exposed to controlled radiation to accelerate molecular integration. However, something went terribly wrong. A containment system failure in the lab caused a silent but devastating explosion. A cloud of radioactive smoke and biological toxins filled the room. Alarms blared as scientists scrambled to evacuate, but Paul was trapped inside, trying to save the samples that represented years of research. The radiation and toxins began to affect him. He passed out, engulfed in chaos, smoke, and flickering lights. When he woke up, he was in a GenX hospital surrounded by executives and scientists masking their concern with forced smiles. In the days that followed, Paul began to notice changes in his body. He could feel the smallest movements in the air, as if his senses had been amplified. His strength had increased in unusual ways, and he was able to produce biological filaments directly from his wrists, structures that perfectly replicated the materials he had studied. At first, Paul tried to hide these changes, but GenX already knew. They monitored his recovery and quickly identified him as a strategic asset. Paul discovered he had become the first human to fully integrate the biological technology he had helped create. He was no longer just a scientist. He was a living weapon. Realizing he was being watched and that his innovations were being used for dark purposes, Paul fled. He used his newfound senses and abilities to disappear, but freedom came at a high cost. After all, with great power comes great responsibility. Now Paul lives in the shadows, constantly moving to avoid being found. The nights are long and lonely. Paul misses his old life, his team, and a clear purpose. But he can't go back. Not with what he knows, not with what he's become. One night, while exploring an abandoned warehouse, Paul found documents that belonged to GenX. Among the yellowed pages, he discovered something that chilled him to the bone. The project that transformed him was only a fraction of something much larger, with mentions of experiments in other locations worldwide, funded by a much bigger company, referred to in one of the documents simply as BI. The final document was the most alarming. A dossier containing images and information about other missing individuals, accompanied by a word that seemed to be an internal code: Solaris. While reading, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Paul turned off his flashlight and held his breath, his senses picking up every movement around him. Armed men were after him. Again. Paul narrowly escapes, carrying with him a fragment of truth that could change everything. He realizes there's a larger conspiracy at play, something connecting his transformation to events darker than he could have ever imagined. Paul now knows he's not alone, and that what happened to him is only the beginning of a plot that threatens the world. He decides that he won't just survive, he will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. This story continues.
If you want to continue following this story, subscribe to our channel and activate notifications.